Hello dear students, welcome back to EduHunt video lecture series. In this session we are going to answer multiple choice questions based on the concept sensory organs. Out of 5 sense organs we have finished describing an eye. Eye is the photoreceptor, it receives light and it helps us to see objects. And we have dark vision and bright vision. We have two different lights, that is dim light and the bright light. Depending on the source of light, depending on the intensity of light that we are getting from the object, our eye adjusts in according to that. We are able to see different objects based on the adjustment called accommodation. These all things will be described in the previous sessions. Let us see how many of you correctly answer all the questions and how many of you will get out of out. Let us test. First question is, the aperture of an eye can be changed by. Aperture, what is an aperture? Aperture is the pupil. Pupil, it may be adjusted by the direct question. It is answer is the fourth option. Iris is the correct option. It acts as a diaphragm of a camera. Like diaphragm, if the light, it receives a bright light, it adjusts according to that, and if it receives the dim light, it adjusts according to that. In the same way, the source of light and the intensity of light based on the object that is emitting the light, iris adjusts, that is the diameter of the iris adjusts itself. Because of that, if it receives the bright light, it undergoes a contraction. If it undergoes in case of this, if it receives the bright light, if the object emits the bright light, it undergoes expansion so that the pupil becomes contract and the diameter of the pupil becomes less, and it receives only few amount of light, that is a narrow light from the bright light. And also if it gets the dim light, if the source emits dim light, then it undergo contraction so as to enable the expansion of the increased diameter of the pupil, so that it gets more amount of light that pass through it. So that is the reason why we can see both the dim light as well as the bright light. So because of the adjustment made by the iris, we can see different lights, we can see objects in different lights. The second question is, which is responsible for color vision? Colored vision. We have two sensory cells in the retina. First one is the pigmented layer, second is the sensory layer. Sensory layer has different sensory cells. Between rods and cones, we have a little bit confusion, but don't get confused between these two. Rods are meant for dark vision and cones are for color vision. CC ala gurtu pettukondi, color vision for cones, for color vision because of presence of cones. And inko question kuda మనం చూసేటప్పుడు డిస్క్రైబ్ చేసుకున్నప్పుడు సెషన్లో రాడ్స్ ఎక్కువ ఔల్స్లో, నాక్టర్నల్ యానిమల్స్లో ఎక్కువ రాడ్స్ ఉండడం చూసాము రెటీనాలో. కోన్స్ డిప్లీట్ అయిపోయి, డిజెనరేట్ అయిపోయి అండ్ ఫ్యూ క్వాంటిటీ, అదర్వైజ్ సమ్టైమ్స్ కంప్లీట్లీ అబ్సెంట్ ఉండడం చూసాం. నెక్స్ట్ క్వశ్చన్ ఈజ్, పిగ్మెంటెడ్ లేయర్ ఇన్ ఐ ఈజ్ కాల్డ్. పిగ్మెంటెడ్ లేయర్ ఇన్ ఐ ఈజ్ కాల్డ్ choroid. Okay, choroid. This choroid is present between the sclerotic layer and the retina. So actually even retina also has that pigmented layer. We have seen that eyeball has different layers called tunics. First tunic is the fibrous tunic. In the fibrous tunic, it has cornea and sclera. Cornea and sclera are present in the fibrous tunic. It is a connective tissue, it is white in color, and it is followed by the second tunic, vascular tunic. The vascular tunic, it has choroid which has high number of pigmented cells. So in this question, pigmented layer is present in retina also. Retina, the first layer is the pigmented layer and then followed by the sensory layer. Sensory layer has rods and cones sensory cells, which is followed by neuronic layer, nervous layer. So this is the anatomy of the eye, where we can see this is the pupil, it is the iris which can dilate and which can contract or expand depending on the source of light. If it is a bright light, it expands. If it is a dim light, it contracts. In that way, the iris adjusts itself to get the sufficient quantity of light to for the pupil. Photosensitive pigment. Photosensitive pigment is, which is the photosensitive pigment? Similar in all eyes? No, it is not the correct answer. Similar in all vertebrate eyes. Yes, this is similar in all vertebrate eyes. Different in all eyes. Anyway, it is different, but similar in all vertebrate eyes is the correct answer. Red in all eyes. No, it is not red in, it is seen in rabbits. Rhodopsin is a constituent of. Rhodopsin is a constituent of. Rhodopsin is the pigment present in rods. Rods have a pigment called rhodopsin, and in this rhodopsin, it is made up of two components, two parts it has, like hemoglobin, protein part and the pigment part, colored part. The protein part is called the scotopsin, and the pigment part is called the, here it is the protein part is the scotopsin, and it consists of, the rhodopsin is the constituent of rods. Rods have this pigment, the rhodopsin, and cones have iodopsin. If the source of bright light in front of eye suddenly become bright, చాలా బ్రైట్గా తయారైందంటే ఏం జరుగుతుంది? Pupil contract, focus of length changes, lens changes, focus of lens changes, vitreous humor becomes liquid like, and retina blood supply is cut off. Pupil contracts so as the much amount of light cannot penetrate or pass through it. So this is the answer. Retina of the vertebrate's eye consists of neurons and neuroglia or neuroglial cells. Yes, both are present. Rods, cones, neurons and neuroglia. Yes, rods, cones and neuroglia, rods and cones. Vertebrates retina possess all these, that is rods, cones, neurons and neuroglia. In the sensory layer, it has rods and cones, and in the neuronic ganglionic layer, it has nerves as well as the neuroglia. That is, it has a bipolar, multipolar neurons are present. The focal length of the lens in eye is controlled by, focal length of the eye is controlled by vitreous humor, iris muscles, ciliary muscles, pupil. It is controlled by the ciliary muscles. So these muscles, they adjust themselves, they adjust the shape to concentrate on the object, to focus on the object by changing the focal length. These ciliary muscles help in controlling the focal length of the lens. This is called, this adjustment of the focal length by the ciliary muscles to enable the eye to focus on the object. It is called the accommodation. Accommodation. Accommodation is the adjustment of the focal length of the lens in the eye. It is controlled by the ciliary muscles. Ciliary muscles అనగానే ఎక్కడ ఉంటాయి? Just above the what we call the junction between the cornea and the sclera, called the limbus. ఈ limbus ki just behind the ciliary muscles are present. Ciliary body is present. It has some muscles called the ciliary muscles. Night blindness is caused due to night blindness. Night blindness is the person with this defect cannot be able to see the objects in dim light or dark. Dark anagane we have to think of about rods. Rods are associated with black and white. Rods are associated with black and white, what we call black and white vision. Black and white is nothing but night, dark vision. This dark vision is because of the sensory cells called rods, and these rods have a pigment called rhodopsin. ఈ rhodopsin అనే pigment లో అగైన్ మనం ఇందాక చెప్పుకున్నట్టు ప్రోటీన్ పార్ట్ కాల్డ్ ద scotopsin and the pigmented part retinal. ఈ రెండు ఉంటాయి. సో deficiency of rhodopsin in rod cells leads to the night blindness. అలాగే nocturnal animals బ్రైట్గా బెటర్గా నైట్ టైం చూడడానికి కారణం కూడా ఈ రాడ్ సెల్స్ ఎక్కువగా ఉండడం వల్ల, లేదా ఓన్లీ రాడ్ సెల్స్ ఉండడం, లైక్ ఆల్ nocturnal animals possess rods, only rods in their retina. During night, when the intensity of light is low, it is detected by rods, cones, both crystalline lens. These are detected by rods. Rods are responsible for night vision or dark vision or vision in dim light. Just now we have mentioned it. Night bright light lo em jarugutundante, this rhodopsin pigment, it decomposes into scotopsin or the opsin protein part and the pigmented part retinal. ఈ రెండు కూడా నైట్ టైమ్ ఆర్ డార్క్ పీరియడ్లో బ్రేక్ డౌన్ అయిపోతాయి. బ్రైట్ లైట్లో బ్రేక్ డౌన్ అయిపోతాయి. నైట్ టైమ్ ఆర్ ద డార్క్ పీరియడ్లో సింథసైజ్ అవుతాయి. అందుకే బ్రైట్ లైట్ ఎండలో నుంచి వచ్చాము, లేదా బ్రైట్ లైట్ రూమ్లో లైట్ ఉన్న రూమ్ నుంచి మనము లైట్ లేని రూమ్కి, బెడ్రూమ్కి వచ్చాము. వచ్చి రాగానే మనకేమీ కనబడదు. అలా అని చీకట్లో అందరికీ కళ్ళు కనపడతాయని నేను అనట్లే. అలా ఇమీడియట్గా అంతవరకు ఎందుకు, మనం టెర్రస్ మీద నుంచి బ్రైట్ లైట్లో నుంచి, సన్లైట్లో నుంచి కిందికి రాగానే, రూమ్లోకి రాగానే, ఇల్లంతా వెలుతురు ఉన్నా సరే రాగానే సడన్గా, అంటే కంపారిటివ్లీ డిమ్ లైట్ కాబట్టి ఇమీడియట్లీ ఈ ఫోకస్ పెట్టడానికి it needs some time to synthesize this rhodopsin pigment. Rhodopsin pigment ప్రిపేర్ అవ్వడానికి కొంత టైం పడుతుంది కాబట్టి ఇట్ టేక్స్ దట్ మచ్ టైమ్ టు సీ ద ఆబ్జెక్ట్స్. అందుకే మనకి బ్రైట్ లైట్లో రాగానే ఏమీ కనబడకపోవడానికి రీజన్ ఈ రాడ్స్ పిగ్మెంట్ని సింథసైజ్ చేయడానికి కొంత టైం తీసుకోవడం అనేది జరుగుతుంది. ఎనీవే ఇన్ని క్వశ్చన్స్లో మీకు ఎంతమందికి 10/10 అవుట్ ఆఫ్ 10 వచ్చాయి? ఎంతమంది కొన్ని క్వశ్చన్స్ పొరపాటుగా ఆన్సర్ చేయగలిగారు? వాళ్ళు రెక్టిఫై చేసుకోండి, మళ్ళీ ప్లే చేయండి, మళ్ళీ ఆన్సర్ చేయండి. ఈసారి కంప్లీట్గా ఒక్క మిస్టేక్ కూడా లేకుండా అవుట్ వచ్చేలాగా ఈ ఎక్సర్సైజ్ చేయండి. థ్యాంక్ యూ.